Be very, very careful, because everybody that has access to that free Wi-Fi or internet service now has the possibility of hacking into your electronic device and seeing what you're doing on there.
Hello, I am Celia Sanka, Executive Director of the DiversityCanada Foundation, and this is the Golden Voices, GoldenYears Fireside Chat. In today's session, we'll be discussing how seniors can stay safe while online and how they can avoid falling victim to scams and fraud. This is a topic that has come up in discussions that Diversity Canada has had with seniors prior to today, and it's something that's really important now that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone has had to shift much of their lives online, and seniors are vulnerable to the bad actors out there who would want to take advantage of those who are new to the internet. Here to tell us about the traps that can be laid online and in person as well as on the phone for seniors is Constable Philip Young of the East Algoma OPP. And Phil is the Community Safety Officer here in the retirement community of Elliott Lake in Northern Ontario. And he is a familiar face to many seniors throughout the years because he has been reaching out to groups, clubs, and organizations to help keep everyone safe. Thank you very much for being with us today, Phil.
Thank you for having me, Celia.
Okay, thank you. So, as I mentioned, you've been working in the community with clubs and groups and organizations. If I may ask, how many years that's been?
So I took over this role, well, in total in policing. I'll start going back to December of 2002. It's been a while now. I'm getting old. However, I took over this role as the Community Safety Officer for East Algoma in Elliott Lake here back in 2016. So I've been in that capacity right up until present right now. So yes, our community of Elliott Lake is a great community. However, it does keep me very busy as well. So
okay, so we are talking about scams, fraud, and particularly scams and fraud on the internet. And let's start with an overview. In speaking with seniors, some are of the view that the internet is a scary place, a dangerous place, and indeed it can be. Give us an idea of how people have been harmed by fraud and scams. You have statistics on how Canadians have suffered losses due to scams and fraud?
So we'll just back that up a little bit, going back to the internet and how we use social media today. Of course, the internet was never introduced or brought to us back with the intention of fraudsters or scammers or these criminals that are out there today. Back in 95, 96 is when I remember it coming to fruition, and it was a brand new thing back then. So I can truly appreciate what the seniors are going through as a definite learning curve, because in today's day and age, everything that we do is going electronic, and you can see that with our businesses and institutions such as banks, and it's a combination of nobody wanting to deal with paper anymore and cutting costs, and everybody always given the option to go paperless and have things sent to you via electronically or however it happens to be. Is that a good thing? Maybe for them it is. Some people still don't trust the internet and don't really want to believe in the internet. However, it is here to stay, and it's only growing vastly every day. So will society become paperless eventually? I think it eventually will, yes. Everything will be going electronic. However, luckily, up till now, they still have to give you that option to deal with, and I hold this up as, hard copy, paper versions of whatever you're dealing with, whether that be bank statements or bills or whatever you're doing. So yeah, it definitely can be a scary place, the internet and social media. However, these institutions and businesses and places as such do give tutorials or learning sessions and as to how to navigate these systems and platforms, quite easily, and hopefully more and more people are able to do that. With that, of course, is the inherent dangers of fraudsters and scammers and these criminals, because it is very, very easy for these types of people to prey on not just seniors, but everybody, all sorts of different types of people using the internet and the World Wide Web. So yes, if you are using the internet and social media, such as Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat, there are a lot of precautions that you should be taking at the same time to keep yourself safe while on the internet and using your computer or cell phone, whatever it happens to be.
Yes, indeed. So seniors are part of the whole shift of life online, where we have to do our banking, pay our utility bills, and do so many things online. And in the cyberspace, on the internet, there are bad actors who have caused really deep financial trouble for many people. Give us an idea of what the damage has been, Phil, for Canadians in terms of dealing with fraud and scams.
So we'll just go back a little bit here to 2019, because that's in one of my presentations. This is it's not the most current stats, but it's not the oldest either. So 2019 top Canadian frauds and their dollar values and losses for victims who actually report these types of occurrences. So these numbers are very high, and not surprisingly so. However, keep in mind that the amount, they say that the percentage of people in the general public who actually report that they've been defrauded is approximately 5%. So this is only dealing with approximately 5% of the totality of people who are being defrauded. So the other 95% are not even reporting that they've been defrauded or fell victim to whatever type of scam that they fell victim to. And there's a number of reasons for that, and you can very well appreciate why they're not, coming to us at the detachment here or phoning into the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, because of the two main reasons would be embarrassment and shame. And those are key, because whenever I do give this presentation to any type of group, I always have a few in the group who raise their hands and say, yes, you know what, I fell victim to that type of scam, whatever it happened to be last week, last year, a couple of years ago, or my neighbor did. Most of them that talk to me at these presentations never did report it, because they were embarrassed or they were ashamed that they got taken, and they knew at the end they shouldn't have been in that position. However, they still did. sorry, see, I got a little sidetracked there, but we'll go into the some of these types of frauds here, and just to show the big dollar values here. So extortion, extortion type scams, and that's either you pay me the money or I will do whatever happens to be. Send pictures of you out onto the internet. Contact your family and tell them that you did this, or this, or that's what I mean by extortion. So dollar values in 2019, 9,233,000. You know, the various types of phishing scams. $1,384. That's not that big of a, but we see that quite a bit in the phishing types of scams, where those types are via email, where they'll send tons and tons of emails out to people and saying, okay, well, you know, the classic computer type scam, or antivirus, or click here because we want to see if your computer is up to date. That's those phishing types of scams. They're phishing for people. Big ones here, the service scams, service type scams, and that would be where we've seen this in town here specifically, would be something along the lines of handyman scams, where they'll send a message out via email, or put call you on the phone, and they'll say, hey, we've got a deal on house cleaning or yard cleanup this week, and if you agree to sign up today, we'll give you 20% discount. So please click here, and then it brings you to a deposit page of $20 off if you give a $20 deposit. I'm just giving examples of something. On a $100 fee or something along those lines. Another common one in town that we've seen would be I believe it was known as like a furnace type scam or appliance scam, and they would do the same type of thing. You know, ABC Furnace Cleaning Company is in town today, or will be in town next week. We'll be in your area, and we're offering this fantastic deal of 50% off. Normally $100, and if you sign up today, it'll only be $50. But we need that $50 up front in order to get the deal. So those are types of service scams. Big dollar values there, over $7 million in loss in 2019. And again, I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg here. There are so many different types out there. I'm just giving you some examples of some of them. Romance type scams are big, are huge in this community. Okay, so romance type scams are in the, over $18 million for that. Job type scams are prized. They're $2 and $3 million, losses. So you can see how, these scammers, it's a very, very lucrative, I hate to use the word business, but it is a business for them to prey upon people and, and defraud them of money. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's prevalent, and it's here to stay.
Thank you very much for that, Phil. So that's a lot of dollars. $9 million here, $7 million there for another type of scam. And as you said, that's just a tiny portion, just 5%. So this runs into hundreds of millions of dollars, actually. So it's a really pervasive problem. I want to take a look a little bit more on the general principles, and we'll do this throughout our discussion. General principles older internet users should think about in order to keep safe. And let's start with the computer itself that we use to get onto the internet. It's possible that the very computer that you're using at home can be exposing more than you even realize. What should seniors know specifically about the cameras that are on their computer?
Be cognizant of the types of electronics or electronic devices that you're using to access the internet. The cameras are big right now, and I'm using mine on my laptop right now, and especially in today's society, because of everything with COVID, more and more people are having Zoom meetings, Skype meetings. Our presentation right now. Be very leery, and what I mean by that is, if somebody were to hack into your electronic device, they now have access to that camera, that digital camera that you're using. So a lot of people use their computers in private areas of their home. Whether, maybe they take it in their bedroom or wherever it happens to be. That hacker, or that person that now has access to your computer, has access to your camera. So they're seeing and watching what you're doing all the time. So what I suggest doing is put a piece of tape, or some people even say a Band-Aid, over top of that webcam when it's not in use. That way there, they have no access to viewing what you're doing pictorially through your computer or your phone or whatever it happens to be. Antivirus software is always good to have. Apple products have it kind of internally built in, but Microsoft programs or Microsoft-based computers do not, so you may need something like Norton antivirus or anything like that. Make sure that that your home Wi-Fi, because most people now use Wi-Fi. Not a lot of homes, except for maybe some that want to make sure that that electronic device is secure. They're actually plugging in that blue cable. Now, what I mean by that is that it's called an Ethernet cable, and that's hardwired in. Not a lot of people like to use those now, because they like to take their electronic devices around their house without dragging a cable around, or their smart TV. So most applications now are using Wi-Fi or wireless. So just make sure you have a strong wireless password, and it's password protected for your Wi-Fi in your house. I always harp on this because it's very, very important. Whenever you are in a free Wi-Fi area, free internet service is fantastic, right? It's awesome. Anything free is great, especially if I can use my electronic device and get free Wi-Fi service, so I don't have to use my own data. Be very, very careful, though, as to what you're accessing and what you're doing while on that server. That's not your server that you're using. It's not like your home Wi-Fi service where you know what you're doing on there. That free Wi-Fi zone or area, and whether that be, I'm just going to mention a few in town, whether that be at Tim Hortons, whether that be at the Hampton Inn, most hotels will have free Wi-Fi now. McDonald's, even the city of Elliott Lake now is offering free Wi-Fi at a lot of their public places, such as Westview Trailer Park, at the beaches, anything like that. Be very, very careful, because everybody that has access to that free Wi-Fi or internet service now has the possibility of hacking into your electronic device and seeing what you're doing on there. Because it's not necessarily password protected, it's a very, very vulnerable platform to use, because everybody and anybody has access to it, which means if they're good with their electronic device, they can now access your electronic device, whatever you're using at that time. So please, please, please do not do internet banking while you're on these open Wi-Fi, because you're entering in sensitive passwords or things that you want to keep private. What else? Online shopping. You may be entering credit card numbers in there that people have access to now. I would even go as far as to say don't be sharing any kind of pictures especially personal pictures or intimate pictures, while you're on these types of open Wi-Fi. So save those for when you're anything like that, anything sensitive, or when you're in your own on your own Wi-Fi or your own internet server. So that way it is protected and you know that it is.
So that's a general principle. When you're on the public Wi-Fi, anything that's highly sensitive, confidential, stop. Don't do it on public Wi-Fi. Keep it for at home. You had mentioned passwords, having a strong password. Can you give us an example of how to create a strong password? My birthday and my postal code, will that work?
Oh, for sure. Anything that has a mixture of different cases. If it's maybe throw a couple capitals in there with some lowercase, a couple numbers, and then a lot of places now, as you probably know, are asking for symbols such as an exclamation mark or an asterisk, or just to keep mixing it up. The stronger password, the better, but it's a little bit of a catch-22, because the stronger the password and the longer the password, the harder it is to remember. So if your memory is anything like mine, you're going to have a lot of these. I live by these, the sticky notes. I have sticky notes everywhere. So you're going to have to write down all sorts of passwords everywhere to try to remember what you created the day before. So when you get to when you're in certain capacities, I just compare it to my work here, and everything that we do obviously is everything has to be protected, I have so many passwords I have to try to remember, and not only that, but every 2 or 3 months I get prompted to change that password, and I'm thinking, wow, I can't think of any more passwords now. So it's a difficult time to navigate sometimes. So.
I myself find that it can be a burden having to try and remember all of those various passwords for the email, for the banking, for the even the utilities. You have to have a password to get in, and I follow that advice. I have to depend on that advice as well to write down everything. So let's take a look at some specific types of scams. We can do a deep dive into them. There's one I've heard of called the Microsoft scam. Can you tell us a bit about how that works?
So the Microsoft scam is one of the earlier ones, actually. You may still see it once in a while today. However, it usually consists of somebody calling you or emailing you, claiming to be a Microsoft or a Windows technician, and they're saying that maybe your computer is sending out viruses, or it's being hacked, or is your software up to date, and can we run a test on it or check things or anything like that. So many of you have seen this or have been subject to it. They will never call. Microsoft will never call you. Windows technicians will never call you to check these kinds of things. I always like to say, and this goes for all of these types of scams, when in doubt, just hang up. Even if it is legitimate, so what? So you're not going to offend that person. Go online or go, check with a neighbor and see what the legitimate number is to call for Microsoft or for that financial institution, and call them back and say, hey, this is the information that I just received. Is this legitimate? And they'll be able to tell you whether or not somebody from their department contacted you regarding that. And I'll tell you right now, 99% of the time, it is a no. So whenever you do receive these types of messages, don't click on anything, because they will provide you areas on your computer to scroll your mouse over. It's called a URL. It's an address bar, and that's when your cursor, you're normally an arrow, will turn into a hand, And that gives you the option to click on something, and that'll bring you now to a different web page, which may cause a lot of problems. So do not ever click on anything like that. If you do receive these types of emails, just delete them. That's the simplest thing I can suggest. Or if you get the phone call, just hang up the phone. Don't get into an argument with them. Don't try to get them back by leading them on, all this other stuff that you hear of. Hang up the phone or press delete. So that's the Microsoft scam. There's so many out there. We'd be here all day if I were to speak of all of them. These scammers are, of course, they're more creative now. They're not using blocked ID or caller, or private name and number, what they used to do. So people would automatically not answer the phone. Now they're disguising their caller ID, and it's called call spoofing. So you can go on the internet and they'll get a fake number and maybe even a name assigned to them, and that's what they're using to call you to try to defraud you and get some money, whether it be that handyman scam where it's whatever it is, ABC furnace cleaning. They'll disguise their name and make it look like a local number here in town to show ABC furnace cleaning, and it'll assign a number that'll show an Elliott Lake area code or Elliott Lake number. So you'll think it's legitimate. It looks very legitimate, but it's not. So whenever you get those types of calls, again, hang up the phone. And I always say as well, check with a neighbor, check with a friend, a trusted person, even myself. You can call the OPP number, the 1888 number, and just ask to speak to somebody and ask them, before you start getting into all this, just ask these people, hey, is this a friend or a neighbor, and they'll be able to steer you in the right direction there. So
you had mentioned earlier about, I guess, the email equivalent of this. The call spoofing is where they pretend to have a particular number that doesn't really belong to them. And you had spoken a bit about phishing, and that is with a Phishing, and unlike phishing with a F, which is fun and you can actually get some good benefits from that, phishing online is dangerous for seniors. If you could expand a bit more on phishing, which is, I guess, the email equivalent of what we were just speaking about, where people try to approach you on the phone and they have a number that looks legitimate but isn't.
So yes, the phishing with a PH type scams, and like Celia said, it's an email that's sent out, and it's a mass distribution list that these scammers have, and they'll just send out that's why they call it phishing again, because it's like throwing a net into the water. And you may get a couple fish. That net may be 1,000 miles long, and if they can get 10 people out of or 10 fish out of 1,000 miles, and they've got 10. And that's kind of like they do with the emails. So they're going to send out 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 emails, and if they can get 10 people to respond, then they're doing well, right? That's a lucrative day for them. So these emails even look legitimate. Whether it be from PayPal, whether it be I've received some from financial institutions, Facebook, you name it, they're gonna copy that emblem, Hydro One even. There's been so many out there, I can't even begin to name them all. The email looks very legitimate, but if you really look closely at it, keeping in mind that these emails and these scammers are coming from other countries in the world, most likely not in North America. So whether it be the UK or India or where, all over the world, these emails are coming from. So their English isn't the greatest. So if you really look closely in these emails, you'll pick up on little things. You know, their sentence structure and their grammar isn't correct, or they're spelling words wrong, like there, like THERE, they're spelling it THEIR, or you know, all this types of stuff. Period where a comma should be. Those are pretty good indicators that that it's a scam. And again, Hydro One. Your financial institution, whether it be BMO or TD, or they're not going to be sending you emails requesting personal information. So just delete that stuff. Same with CRA. Again, the classic CRA scam where they're threatening you on the phone that the police are gonna come and take you to jail if you don't pay up, and all this types of stuff. So I say that, I bring that up because I just received one today actually on my work phone. So. But the phishing scams, yes, you will see those on throughout your emails. Again, delete. Safest thing to do is just delete them.
So don't engage, just like you advised on the phone. Don't try to get back at them. Just delete and you move on. Okay, so one of the scams we hear about is really sad, because it preys on the loneliness that seniors might face as widows or widowers. And you had mentioned it when we were looking at the statistics, which show that huge losses for individuals because of it. That's the romance scams. What can you share with seniors about romance scams that would help keep seniors safe online and offline as well?
So yes, romance scams have been quite prevalent in our community because the scammers know the demographics of our community, and they know there's seniors. There's a high senior population here in LA Lake. A lot of the seniors may be widowers, may be up here alone. Obviously, some their spouse might have passed away, or whatever the case happens to be. They're lonely for whatever reason, so they're looking for somebody to talk to and to have some company. Whether that be going on dating sites or seniors chat lines or whatever platform that they happen to use, these scammers are on. They know that these scammers are on these sites and they are preying upon you. So be very, very, very careful who you think you're talking to on the other end of that computer or phone, wherever it happens to be. So these fraudsters or scammers will develop a relationship with you over an extended period of time to gain your trust. And at the end of that time frame, then they will start asking for money. And I've seen this personally countless times in town here. And it's not even the victim per se that is calling us. It is a family member or a neighbor or a friend or a landlord or somebody that's heard about it, or the person has told, and they say, hey, Mrs. Smith down the hallway is taking is sending a lot of money via whatever, e-transfers or bank drafts, or however they want to devise to send the money to this person that they think is going to marry them overseas or whatever happens to be. So yes, it will develop over time, and they will gain your trust, and you may think that it's legitimate. They may send you a picture, and you're thinking, wow, this is a great relationship, and then it turns into, we've had anything from marriage, setting up marriage, to the person on the other end is sick, or they've got a sick family member that they need money for. Can you possibly help me? I'd really like to meet you. This was one of the last ones. I think it would be great if we could meet in Toronto. But I don't have the money to fly there from the Philippines, from the UK, from wherever it happens to be. can you lend me $500 and we'll meet next week? And, you know, it starts off like that, and then you'll send them the $500 and show up. You'll go down to meet them at the Toronto airport and nobody's ever there. This specific one that I'm thinking of went on actually for a couple months even after this happened, because when the person drove back home, excuse me, the scammer on the other end said, "Oh, sorry, I had a family emergency that I couldn't make it to the airport this time, and hopefully we can meet up again in another month or two." So this went on again for a couple months. And, another one I can think of is a family member of mine has cancer, and in my country, medication and treatment is very expensive, so can you help me out with this? And they're very creative. They'll send pictures of who you think they want to see and what you think that you should be seeing, but it's all totally fictitious. This person was sending thousands of dollars to a fraudster because they said that they're I can't remember what family members they said had cancer and they needed this treatment or they would die and all this stuff. So that's just, again, types of romance scams. Of course, we can get into the extreme, and we've seen this in town numerous times too, is dealing with romance scams is sextortion. So sextortion is these fraudsters, again, taking time to gain your trust, and eventually over time you'll start maybe sharing some pictures or some intimate images of yourself, and they're sending pictures of some fake person out of a magazine, and now they've got all that personal information about you in their hands or on their computer. And then the tables turn, and then they start, extorting and saying, unless you pay us $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000, or so we've even seen up to $10,000, we're going to take that intimate image of you and share it with everybody on your contact list, or everybody at your office where you work. And of course, these people are terrified, so they start paying the money. So, yeah, it can be. It's very serious, and it is here. So
I can imagine how devastating that can be. That would bring quite a bit of distress to anyone who is caught up in that, a victim of that. So it's so important that seniors are able to recognize that at the outset and protect themselves from that. Moving on, we can look at a couple of other categories of scams, and so that knowledge would be the power that helps seniors to protect themselves against these different types of scams. Now, seniors are on fixed income, and they can always do with a bit of extra cash, and there are some scams that try to take advantage of that situation. So I can think about, for instance, the inheritance scam and the vacation scam, and there's also the lottery scam. How can seniors recognize when they're being targeted by scams such as these?
So yes, all three of those pretty much work hand in hand, or work along the same principles. The scammer will, receive an email or a phone call or however means the fraud's just going to reach out to them and say, a family member has died, let's say in the inheritance scam, and that they're entitled to a large amount of money. However, in order for that money to be released from whatever country that long lost relative died in, it has to go. We have to follow some legal procedures, or we need some help with the legal fees to pay our lawyers to get it out of our country and pay you. So it's he had whatever X amount of dollars, $1 million, and it's going to take $1,000 for us to get it out of the country and get it to you. So if you can forward that to us, then we can get that money to you. So there's that type, and the prize scam works on the same type of principle. You know, your name, whether or not you know it, your name was entered into a lottery in whatever country it happened to be. You won X amount of dollars, but however, for us to get it over to you, you have to give us $100 or $500 to get it, or you receive that check that looks like $1 million check in the mail, and everything looks legitimate, and it'll tell you in the at the bottom of that letter that, again, in order for, if you can go down and cash that check, but at the same time deposit us the $100 and then we can release the funds right away. That type of stuff. So there's also one that we've seen a couple times in town here too, Celia, and that's it's a type of, it works along the same type of principles as that, and it preys upon the seniors, is that where this fraudster will call the suspected victim and say they'll pretend to be a family member, whether that be a grandson or a granddaughter or a daughter, or whoever it happens to be, and they'll play it up to make it, they'll go along with the senior and make the senior believe that yes, it is so and so on the other end of that phone, and that they are in trouble somewhere, wherever they are, vacationing, or the last one we saw was the granddaughter was vacationing in forget which country, and they got themselves into some trouble and they needed some bail money to get out of jail. And the senior thought it actually was their granddaughter, and so she went ahead and forwarded X amount of dollars, and of course it was nothing. An hour or two later they ended up thinking, well, scratched their head and thought, oh, I better call my son and see if their daughter and my granddaughter actually was in trouble. And it ended up being, no, of course not, they weren't. And the son said, no, so-and-so was with me right here. So we've seen that a few times in town. And again, they're very creative and they know what they're doing, they know what to say, and they get the person to believe them. So
they pull at the heartstrings of seniors and they get funds out of them. As we wrap up a bit, I want to look at another way that scammers try to attack seniors and others, in that they're not looking to get money out of them immediately, but they're looking to get information and be able to steal their identity, ultimately to steal their money. How can someone recognize that they have fallen victim to identity theft? And tell us a bit more of what identity theft is.
So identity theft would be where the scammer would call or somehow get a hold of that person and get a hold of their personal credentials, whether that be your name, date of birth, social insurance number, so your SIN, your SIN number. If they've got these three pieces of information, they've got your identity. So they can now, apply for bank loans, apply for credit cards, and rack up all this stuff and under your name and your identity. So they've basically stolen your identity, and they're pretending to be you by applying for this type of credit. So again, I can't stress enough, do not ever, ever, ever over the internet or over the phone, by any electronic means for that matter, provide your SIN number, for sure, 100%. Never, never, never provide your SIN number. And I would even go so far as to say never provide your date of birth. Names, that's irrelevant because there might be, tons of Sally Smiths out there or John Smiths, but with the same date of birth as you, now we're narrowing it down, and then with the same SIN number, and now we've narrowed it right down to you. So again, don't provide this information over the internet, over the phone for that matter. If they're claiming to be and again, I said this at the beginning. CRA, so the Canada Revenue Agency, or financial institutions will never, never, ever phone you or email you and ask you for those personal credentials. And that could mean bank account numbers. Credit card numbers are tricky because a lot of people will still use that for online purchases. And a lot of the credit card companies have a fraud detection system in place where they can pick up on it and shut it down if they detect fraud is occurring, or I should say, they will reimburse you if you have been defrauded for any type of crime such as that. But as for SIN numbers, date of birth and stuff like that, do not ever provide that over the phone or electronic means. Always call your bank, take the 30 seconds and get the legitimate number for that institution and call them and provide it that way. Or, whatever happened to the olden days, I say olden days, of going down, physically going to your bank, your financial institution, and talking to a teller. I know that's unheard of today, but it is still there. There are still tellers there, and they'll be more than happy to help you with this type of thing and help you navigate through whatever electronic difficulties you're having and picking up on these types of scams. So they're trained in these areas as well. So to try to prevent this identity theft. See, I'm just going to back it up a little bit here because I wanted to just touch on payment types and what these scammers ask for when they are asking for money. So when they are asking for money, and again, it's unfortunate, but we still see this a lot in the police aspect because it gets reported to us afterwards. When they're asking for any type of monetary amounts, of course, well, I shouldn't say of course, because I saw this a few weeks ago where the scammer did ask for cash, and it was about into the multi-thousands of dollars worth of cash. They asked this person to buy a magazine and stick the cash in between the pages of the magazine, and then mail the magazine to the scammer. And of course, they just have P.O. boxes, so they're very hard to track and trace. Most times, though, that was one of the first times I've seen that technique used. And another technique would be the scammer asked a person to go down to the bank, and it was the financial institution of their choice, obviously, and open up a bank account in their name, make it a joint account with whoever the scammer was, get an extra card and send it to the scammer. So that's another way that they're able to get the money out. So then this person was to just keep making deposits into that bank account, and then the scammer could pull the money out from wherever they were. However, most common that we see today and in the past would be different types of payment methods and by forms of cards, monetary cards. And what I mean by that is they will ask the person to go down to the Canadian Tire gas bar or Shoppers Drug Mart or Rexall or whatever retail store happens to be and buy cards. So monetary cards, that can mean Google Play cards, that can mean iTunes cards, vanilla cards, anything that holds a monetary value on them. And you can get them in denominations of $20, $50, $100, whatever it happens to be. So red flags should raise as soon as they start asking, okay, well, you know what, can you go down to your retail, Canadian Tire gas bar or Shoppers Drug Mart and ask, and get $500 in Google Play cards or iTunes cards. And then they'll keep them on the phone or keep you on the phone, and then they'll ask you once they'll tell you right on the phone, don't call the police, don't tell anybody what you're doing. If the cashier asks, tell them you're getting them for your granddaughter or your grandson. And we see this every week. We see this, and the RCC, so the Retail Council of Canada, are now working with us as well, and they're, we're trying to get them to put up signage, where these monetary cards are sold, warning people, if you're buying cars for people you don't know, it's a scam or anything like that. So these cards have very unique serial numbers on the back, and what they get you to do is scratch no different than a lottery ticket. When you scratch that little coating off of it, it reveals a code on the back, and you're supposed to read the scammer that code. And once that scammer has that code, it's just as good as cash in their hand to them, and it's gone. So again, we're working with retail stores, and they've been pretty good lately in the past. The cashiers will try to advise the person buying the cars that this doesn't sound right, or things aren't adding up, and a lot of the time they will call police, and we'll go down and attend and talk to the people and see what how legitimate it actually is. And most of the times it's not. And actually, a lot of the times, that person, that senior, has the actual scammer still live on the cell phone, talking to them and telling them what to do. So, which is very sad to see.
Yes, the scammers are brazen. They take advantage of individuals who are trusting. So, as we close off, I want to look at how, or what we can do if we realize that someone has our identity and is using our name to take out loans, or someone has realized that I have sent money for my fiancé to come and visit me, and the person never shows up. So when someone has realized I have been taken in, what can or should the individual do?
So if you do find yourself falling victim, or you think you're, falling victim to a type of scam, of course, and I always say this again, I'm going to harp on this, is talk to a trusted person. And that trusted person is different for everybody. It could mean a neighbor, it could mean a friend, it could mean a family member, and it could mean police. And ask them advice as to what you should do. Maybe it's just some information, it's the beginning stages of a possible scam that you may think you're falling victim to. Or you may be, waist deep into it already, and you don't know what to do because this person is getting very demanding on the phone, or whatever happens to be. So definitely talk to a trusted person. When all else fails, we're always here to help. The police, if you call us, it's not a 911 emergency number type of call, but it can be a local type of call where you can just call myself, call an officer here, and just even our detachment administrative clerks at the front will be able to better guide you as to what you can do. And that number is 888-310-1122. Again, 888-310-1122. And that'll put you through to our communication center, and then you can just go through the motions from there. If it's an identity type of theft, or you feel somebody's might have gotten a hold of your SIN number and is racking up credit under your name, then the two main companies who look after credit is Equifax and TransUnion, and you can look those ones up as well. I won't provide the numbers, but those are the two main ones. So Equifax and TransUnion. And then what we refer, the agency we refer a lot of people to who oversee all of this types of frauds and scams, that's what they specialize in, is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, so the CAFC. And their number is 888-495-8501. Again, 888-495-8501. And you can call them anytime. They will take down your information and what type of scam it is, and they keep a track and a log of all of this type of stuff as well. And that's where we provide, or we receive information from them to provide, statistical information, such as I did at the beginning of the presentation, to the public, because they track all of this, and they'll be able to better. They can focus on areas where we may need to do, enforcement. To try to get these scammers. So if they're getting an influx of, monetary card purchases for romance scams in Elliott Lake, well then, they're going to try to, get people up here to help us, like the Retail Council of Canada, to go in and give tutorials or information sessions to our local businesses. So there's a lot of behind the scenes investigation that goes on that you may not see, and you think, well, I reported my case, but the CAFC said that they're just going to take down my information, and there's nothing they can do. Yes and no. There's nothing they can do to catch the scammer right then and there today, but they're still taking down that information, and we're seeing what we can do in the future to help negate this from happening again to other people.
Let's say someone has fallen victim, they bought the cards, they sent the money over to the person they thought they were falling in love with. How likely is it that someone who has fallen victim to the types of fraud that we spoke about, the scams we spoke about, how likely is it that they would get their money back?
Not very likely. I hate to say that, but I don't want to give you false hope either in saying that, yeah, you know what, we're going to get that person and we're going to get you your money back. It's very, very rare. Probably slim to nil you're going to see that money back. Like I said before, though, if you're dealing with credit cards, they have their own fraud detection procedures in place that'll pick up on that and hopefully shut the credit card down. Or if money was taken off, then most financial institutions will reimburse you for that if it's proven to be a fraud. As for Google Play cards or monetary cards like this, once that serial number is divulged to them and they have it in hand, that's it. It's gone. You're probably never going to see that again. And unfortunately, there still is the RCMP. We work closely with the RCMP, and the RCMP kind of oversee the CAFC and the investigations, frauds and scam type investigations. And there have been some in the past where they were able to intercept and go in and shut down these types of call centers, and lay charges and arrest these people. But it's definitely it's a cat and mouse game, and as soon as we shut down one, it seems like 10 more appear, and they put a little bit of a twist on things just to make it a little bit different, so it makes it that much harder for us to detect it or to trace them or track them. So it's a tough thing to try to. It's a tough thing to investigate, and it's even a harder thing to try to bring these people to justice.
Okay, so the key thing is not falling victim in the first place.
100%, and that's why I feel very passionate about this, and that's why pre-COVID times I was doing as many presentations to various agencies and groups in town as I possibly could, because the more people who know about this and have knowledge of it, and the less will fall victim, which is what we want.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Phil, for the valuable information you've shared to help keep seniors safe in cyberspace, as it's called, on the internet. We appreciate your time and the insights that you've shared. Thank you so much.